Welcome to Conversations Matter. I'm Hans Hickler.
And I'm Molly Bergholm.
Molly and I are big fans of having real, deep conversations. So sit back, relax, be present, and really enjoy this one. Alan, thank you so much for being here with us today on Conversations Matter.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So Molly, Alan and I know each other through a mutual friend, Jeff Wolpov, who I believe you've met as well. And
Yes.
I have to say that Alan is one of the most socially active people I know. He knows everybody. And now you and I are in that circle as well, so we should be very happy.
So grateful to be in your circle, Alan. And I'm so excited to hear more about your story. Would you be open to sharing more of your story with us?
I was a kid born and raised in New York City on the Upper East Side. So I actually grew up in the Jefferson's building on 85th and 3rd Avenue. My mom still lives there. And my neighbor was Wheezy and the whole crew from the TV show. But it was interesting growing up in New York City. Obviously, it was definitely a different experience. And education within itself. Definitely, went to a couple different schools in New York and was growing up fast. I was in the clubs in New York and when I was 15 years old, running around, having a good time. I was a hockey player and an athlete. Went away to college, got hurt playing hockey in college, and then went away on vacation. When I was away on vacation, it was December of 1987, and I went away with my friend Gil, and we went to Club Med, and we were on the beach one day, and I went to the ocean just like I would any other day, and a wave came from behind and flipped my legs out from underneath me, flipped me over, and my head hit the ocean floor, and I heard it snap. And I knew I was in trouble, and I was face down, so I actually tried to actually kill myself at some point in time because I was underwater for so long. I literally saw my life flash in front of me. I saw that white light that everybody talks about, where it was very calm and peaceful. And then I kind of like washed up on shore. My friend pulled me out, and all hell broke loose. The craziest part of the story is that I was actually raising money for a friend of mine in high school when we graduated in 1985 who was paralyzed. So I knew what paralysis was. He was a paraplegic, and I did it better. I put my neck to give a quadriplegic. So in one split second, my life changed. And I'm convinced that this happened to me for a reason. And the reason is to help and inspire others. And that's what I try to do every single day. So that's kind of my spinal cord background. And then I have a work background, a life background. That's, of two beautiful children and a great girlfriend and great jobs. I have a World Series ring, from the Florida Marlins in 1997. I started a sports radio station. I worked for Slim Fast, which is where I met Debbie, and that's how I met Jeff. And, connections all the way through, constantly doing things. And, one of the crazy things is one of Jeff Wolpov's best friends is Adam Schefter, who's from ESPN. And he happened to be away on vacation and was one of the people that pulled me out of the water.
No kidding.
Things come full circle and you just never really know. So that's kind of my story. And now I am the director of public impact for the Christopher Dana Reeve Foundation. I was very friendly with Christopher. I was there after he got hurt, and we developed a very close relationship and bond. And I do that with a lot of people. It's not whether your name is Christopher Reeve or Eric LeGrand, the football player, or celebrity, or your name is John Smith. When I get phone calls, I don't care who it is, I literally jump right in. And the crazy thing, just getting into this whole pandemic right now, literally a gentleman in my building broke his neck on March 11th. And I heard them all clapping a week and a half ago. I was trying to figure out what it was, and I pull out my binoculars, and I can see, I know whose apartment it is, and they roll my friend out. He's 53 years old. He was playing tennis, and he dove for a ball, and ended up breaking his neck. And he lives in my building. So, I haven't left my apartment now in 66 days since March the 7th. And that fact that paralysis hit me so close to my home, and I'm looking at it out my window, which is where I'm working out and getting my space and breathing, reminds me more of why I have to stay focused, stay in tune, and do what I need to do to stay healthy to get on the other side of this one.
So it's so interesting, Alan, because it's similar to your story, although different, of course. I almost died in a car accident when I had just graduated from university, and I was in New York City, and my cab driver was crushed, and I fractured my spine and my skull and my sternum. However, of course, I was not paralyzed, and I have spent a good portion of my life really thinking about, what if one small inch would have been different? What if I wouldn't have been able to recover?
Not even an inch is a lot.
Yes. Centimeter. And all of the preciousness of life, and how in order to be healthy on any given day, there's thousands of things that happen right. And in any given life, there's millions of things that could go right and millions of things that could go wrong. And so I really I wanted to ask you the question of, in life, in the things that have happened to you. I know with my injuries, I go through cycles where there's times in which I really feel grateful and I'm excited, and there's other times when I'm in really profound physical pain, or there's things I can't do physically that maybe someone else could. That there's times when I say, why me? Why did this happen to me? And I catch myself and I say, no, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm a survivor. I am doing amazing things. It could have been so much worse. And I was wondering about your relationship with that conversation between I'm so grateful I'm alive. I'm so grateful I can have kids. I'm so grateful all of this stuff. And also, let's be honest, the why me, at least for me, the why me comes up.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question. Nobody has ever not said, why me? There's times where it's just, life is unfair and you get held back a lot, especially with living with paralysis, obviously. But I actually try to take a lot of that negative energy and I kind of repurpose it. When I feel, I live in pain 24/7, so you hear the word paralysis and you think, okay, the guy's paralyzed, he's in a chair, he's got all these issues, and he's not going to be in pain. I live in pain. I feel like my legs are on fire 24/7. There's no getting out of that. So the constant having to, not sleeping all the time and being uncomfortable because you're sitting. I mean, our bodies are not made to sit all the time. So that's one thing. Also, sometimes just, I recently had a shoulder injury where I fell. I was training for the New York City Marathon, and I fell. I hurt myself. That messed me up. That really threw me back because that took away a lot of my independence. So that was tough on me. But when I know it could be worse. I mean, I see my friends. I spent a lot of time with my friends that can't move a muscle in their body, and they have to control their wheelchair with their chin. So, like, who am I to really complain? And, I get all the calls where people say, oh, wait, I wanted to call you or something, but I don't want to complain to you. I'm like, why not? Like, what's the difference? Bounce it off me. I'm here for you. And
you can say...
I should, I do take time for myself, but I can definitely, you never do take enough time for yourself. I give myself more to others. And that's just kind of been my mantra of how I do things. I have a list of people that are in chairs, families, things along the lines that my work never really stops.
It's interesting, Molly. I think you can tell already, Alan has an incredible energy and such a positive energy. I was at the Soho House having lunch with some friends, and Alan was there having lunch with some people, and I stopped to say hello, and he shook hands with my friends, and as we walked away, my friend said, oh my God, what an amazing person. I could have spent like a half hour. I just wanted to talk with him. And this is the way it is. So he's in public relations. He's in community relations. And you can tell because the energy is so strong. And I want to read you a quote. Your friend Danny, who got hurt, a few years before you, he said, He and I were put in chairs for a reason. I don't believe the man upstairs was satisfied with our lives on foot. He thought Alan and I had more potential from sitting in chairs with a broken neck and broken back. We're game changers, explains Danny. We change the game. Instead of being victims just lying in bed, we are in people's faces. Nobody's going to remember us for the amount of money in our bank accounts or the fancy cars we drive. People are going to remember us for the betterment of humankind. And I think, that just encapsulates you, because you started co-founded the Alan T. Brown Foundation, and that whole foundation was about helping people get through this on all levels: physical, spiritual, mental, community. And I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about, that comment, you reacted to it when I read it, and also the foundation work and how you ended up melding the two foundations?
So with regards to Danny, it's funny, we're like Felix and Oscar, by the way. Like he's like the paraplegic who, doesn't have movement from the waist down. I'm the quadriplegic from the chest down. And I'm always looking like perfectly dressed, and he's like always a mess. So like that's the two of us, and we literally talk to each other still every day, which is great. But the foundation started just. I remember lying in my hospital bed in the intensive care unit and, talking to my rabbi when he came down to Florida from New York on my first conversation. And I never asked why. I said, I got to ask you a question. I said, if I didn't make it, what would you have said at my funeral? And he was like, looked at me like, are you kidding me? And I said, no, I mean, it was that close. Like, what would you have said? So he said, he looked back into, the portion of the week of where it was, of when it happened, and he thought about it for a second, and he says, "You're a spirit of freedom to show people that they can go and do and soar." And that's kind of like that's what he said to me, and I said, "Well, that's what I plan on doing." And I've never said, why me? I really have. I've always said that this is not about me; it's about we as a community. And Danny and I are just. Danny got hurt before me, and he kind of opened my eyes to this whole thing. And when it happened to me, it became a little bit more personal. And the crazy thing about this injury is I know, a guy that came to visit me in the hospital got hurt a year later in Israel in a bus accident. And this one that I know, and this one I know, and I get phone calls from random people all the time. So this is not something you're born with. It doesn't discriminate. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Wrong place, wrong time. You were in a taxi. Could have held a different cab that day, right?
Hey, I broke my neck skiing in 2004. So
there you go. So like, you just never know how close you really are. So you have to take every day really and live it to the fullest. And kind of what Danny said about leaving the mark. Like I always tell people, I'm not even close to that. Like I have so much more to prove. With regards to. Being inclusive, like really being inclusive in the world for people with disabilities, especially after the COVID-19 thing, to make sure, think about if somebody's deaf right now when they go into, not let alone the hospital, back in the world, they can't read anybody's lips. So whether I'm in a wheelchair and I have my own struggles, but now the whole world is struggling, and I know you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but the whole world is feeling a little bit of paralysis right now. And if you look up paralysis in the dictionary, one of the meanings is a state of helpless stoppage, inactivity, or inability to act. And that's what we're all feeling right now.
Yeah.
Do you have advice for us about being in the state of paralysis that we're in right now with COVID-19?
Yeah, I do. I think it's important that you get into a good routine. Routine is really, really important, and for the mind, and the body. And when I say routine, there has to be a physical component, a mental component, and a social component. You have to make sure, like one of my tricks that I tell some of my friends to do, just when they say that I'm struggling a little bit, and they say, well, what do you want me to do? What should I do? I said, go to the end of your text messages and find some people you haven't been in touch with a while.
I love that.
And FaceTime or make visual contact with somebody at least 5 times a day. And when you go back to the bottom of your text messages, you're going to start flipping out when you see somebody like, you know what, I should be checking on that person. And it will make you feel good and it will make them feel good. And stay relevant. I've had to shift a lot of my work at the Christopher Reeve Foundation right now online. So we're doing like an online poker tournament. We're going to be doing, a sports talk thing. And how do we do our gala last year that we did at Cipriani in New York? How do we change all that and stay relevant? We're an at-risk population. So, we have to be extremely careful what we live and what we do. But, you have to take one day at a time and don't don't go crazy with the news. Find some good TV, good shows to watch. I went back, I started The Sopranos from the beginning again, something old and different, that you just wanted, that reminded you of good times. And don't watch all the stuff that's going to drive you crazy. And, good comedies here and there and stuff. And music, I keep music on in the house all the time. Always keep music on, pick a different station. I change it 3 times a day so you get a different mode of music. And, get fresh air, get light. Try to keep that in keep candles. So a little bit of everything.
Alan told me this thing. We talked last week, and he was telling me I've been going to the bottom of my text message string, and those are the people I should be reaching out to. And I've started doing that. And it's embarrassing that I haven't reached out to those people in so long, right? Time goes by, and it's been really fun. It's been really fun. And you're right. Some of them these are people I should be checking in on. And others are, wow, I can't believe I haven't been in touch with that person for so long. And I consider myself a pretty sociable person too, but I thought that was really good advice and very modern advice. Check your text messages.
Yeah, check your text messages. There are people out there that can use a hand right now. So while we're, sheltered in place, let's, reach out to others.
And that point, Alan, too, of how we can support people who are at risk during these times, both from the physical perspective of really wanting to care for people by not exposing them. I know that's a big dialogue happening right now, that it's not just about you getting out to go out without a mask. It's about protecting people who are at risk, which is everyone, but certainly some people are at a higher risk than others. Could you speak to the physical and also the mental aspects of what are some of the ways that we can support people who are at risk during these times?
So, basic little stuff is just checking on them. Like literally check on your neighbors, know who's around you. I think that's important during this time. I think that, medical supplies, believe it or not, a lot of supplies that we used to all use, are now PPE, and a box of something that gloves that you would buy for $6 is now $22. So when people are just trying to get by, basic supplies along those lines goes very far. Cook people meals and drop them off. Like if you're going to the supermarket, think about them if you happen to be going out and doing stuff. So, make sure that you're kind of doing, things for others along the way. I think it's also important from the standpoint of really, if you see somebody that has a disability, you kind of mentioned it, you have to be respectful because a lot of us that have disabilities are dependent on caregivers. So we have people coming and going out of our apartments or our houses all the time to help take care of us. So you have to depend on that other person.
Yeah.
So, there's a fear factor also involved of staying healthy and staying locked down. So, I'm more nervous as we open up, to be honest with you, as to what's going to happen. I'm still not going anywhere for a little while. I want to watch and see what happens. But just be there for your neighbors, reach out. I called two people that live in my building this week. They were so thankful, and they're just, older people that live in the building that nobody's been checking on. And I just figured, why not? Let me just, call. So I did. And it made me feel good.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, you ended up, being really good friends with Chris and Dana Reeve. And now your foundation, if I'm correct, has sort of folded in, right? You've sort of folded the two together. I'm going to read another quote. You said Christopher, didn't get to finish, so I'm going to finish for him. He had such little movement, but never stopped moving. He was a leader, never stopped, never gave up. What do you mean when you say you're going to finish for him?
He was about a voice. He was about making noise. He was about being out there. Now that the Allen T. Brown Foundation is under the same umbrella, we're a stronger organization as a whole. I've been over at the Reeve Foundation for 8 years now, and now my mom came over, so now we're all completely under one roof. And it's strength in numbers. And, like Eric LeGrange is a football player from Rutgers University. He's Team LeGrange of the Christopher Reeve Foundation. So the more we unite as a community, the more our voice is the more powerful our voice is. And that's kind of what Chris was about. I mean, he was really about making sure that nobody was ever left behind. And I kind of feel like I have no choice but to do this. This is his 25th year since he's been hurt. It's 25 years since Chris had his accident. Will be in 2 weeks, actually.
That's amazing.
If you really think about the cause didn't really have a face until Christopher.
Yeah.
And paralysis wasn't really as big of a deal as it was until him. So he really opened it up. And then, you get some athletes that get hurt here and there, along the way. But Superman, Superman being paralyzed, that's totally it doesn't make any sense. And his drive, his wheelchair sits in, our office in Short Hills, New Jersey. And every time I go in there and I look at it, the way that it makes me feel is like, wow, he just didn't get it. He left us way too early.
You know what? He could have.
We would be so far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, because he would have rolled all over DC, and they would have said he couldn't. He would have been unstoppable.
Yeah. He could have just secluded himself too, and said, after that accident, and could have just secluded himself and stayed at home. But he chose to really make it a powerful thing to help a lot of people right afterwards. And
yeah,
I'm not sure I would have had the strength to do that.
Basically had a conversation with Dana, and Dana said, "I will never leave you. You're not going anywhere." And between her and his relationship with Robin Williams was amazing. The humor that he brought to Chris was mind-boggling, and the New York Rangers and Christopher Reeve. Chris used to come and sit next to me in the corners of the garden after his accident, and he loved hockey. And what drives crazy now, if you look at his son Will, who's a reporter for Good Morning America, he used to stand on my feet so he can see over the boards,
at
the garden in the corner. And now he's he looks like his father. It's amazing. So a great family, and he deserves to have a legacy, for the amount of time that we did have him, and the impact that he made, deserves to keep going on, because his flame will never go out. As long as I'm around, it's not going out. Yeah. That I can guarantee.
Alan, that archetype of being a Superman, is such a powerful one. And oftentimes, of course, the orientation towards him as a Superman, as a superhero, was a very physical aspect. He was the one who could sweep in and do anything and help anyone and save anyone. And certainly as the transition happened, that he became the Superman who was doing all these things to raise awareness, that there was a transformation that happened there, a broadening of the definition of Superman. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, what your insights are on that.
Obviously I'm not the guy that was leaping buildings in a single bound and doing all that kind of stuff, but I'm not 6'4" and looking like he does. But, it's strange, because a lot of my friends and I that knew Christopher or that are in chairs now, when you tell them the whole Superman story of what went on, and it's hard to fathom this guy that was so big and so strong, that could really handle anything, that was now so dependent on, he couldn't even scratch his own head. If his eye, he couldn't. So but it didn't stop him from moving. He was moving. He pivoted. He did what we're all doing right now, which is kind of why I used that analogy before of everybody's feeling a little bit paralyzed. Is, when I got hurt on January 2nd, 1988, that was my first time that I was stopped like that. I had other times over the 33 years that I've had obviously issues, but what we're all feeling now, COVID-19 is a lot of people's first taste of a little bit of being stopped in your tracks and not being allowed to do what you want to do. Yeah. So I think Christopher, coming back to that whole thing, his superpowers just were generated into another. He focused. He wanted a cure. He wanted to figure out how to do this. He was putting himself into swimming pools. He was the first one to jump into the science. He was the first one to roll onto Capitol Hill, and there was never keeping him down. I mean, the staff would. He had this energy, and kryptonite could not have kept him down after his act. I'll tell you that. I mean, it sometimes just makes you stronger, believe it or not. And I think this made him stronger, just in a different way.
Well, I could have said exactly that same thing about you, what you just said about Christopher. He's done 3 marathons. He's gone skydiving. He's gone. Nothing stops you. So I think look in the mirror, and I think you'll find that when it comes to impact, you and Chris are sitting rowing the same boat.
So true.
I know he's always watching over me. Amen.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. Tell me a little bit about how you think about community and friendship.
So, friendship is the most important thing to have in life. To have friends is the most important thing. That's what got me through this, is my friends. The community that I grew up in New York City, on the Upper East Side, that my synagogue, my school, my little community is what made me who I am as a human being. I learned that really, really well when I was young. That comes from, growing up in an Orthodox Jewish home. You learn that. It was, so that was something that was embedded into me when I was young. One of the biggest mitzvahs, a good deed that you can do for somebody is, in the Jewish religion, is to prepare a dead body for its burial, because you're doing something for somebody that they can never repay you. And that's something that I started doing when I was 14 years old. And I wanted to give back to my community, but I didn't want anybody to know about it. Because that's something where nobody knew who the group was that did that stuff.
That's
it was
such
just
a
one of those things
point.
where you just went and did it and you got done, because in the Jewish religion, somebody passes away and they bury them immediately. So it happened really quickly, and I was doing that when I had my accident. That was taken away from me because I couldn't do that. Everything that I did because of this wheelchair is now been public. So now community is even more important, because every time I go out there, I'm setting an example for other people that live like me. There's 1 in 50 Americans living with some sort of paralysis, stroke, MS, cerebral palsy, spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury.
1 in 50, you said?
1 in 50 Americans.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So almost 6 million, a little over 6 million people. And so, I just feel that building community and, connecting all the dots all the time, whether it be in my business world or my friendship world or the spinal cord injury community, all of those, there's got to be constant connections going back and forth, from friendship to community. Some friends that you have can be extremely wealthy and can help the charities that you work for, and they feel great about it. So when you mold a community and you work within a lot of different communities, people benefit from the friendship.
What are some of the biggest myths that you would like to do away with, or the questions that people have that about people with disabilities that you would like for people to know about?
Well, I think, if you look at the word disability, there's actually three letters too many in there. and it's the three first letters, which is dis. So actually, we all have ability. So
sure.
I think that's really, it's in the word.
Is there a better word that we can use? Is there a better word, do you think? Is there a better word that we can use?
No, it is what it is. I mean, that's the word, and it's out. That's what everybody uses: disability, physically challenged. But it all depends. There are certain buzzwords that are, but it's more now about just becoming more inclusive as a society, and embracing people with their disabilities. Because let me tell you, I say it all the time. I'll be in New York City, and rolling down Fifth Avenue, and people looking at me, and I'm like, I used to stop, and I could tell somebody staring at me, and I would stop, and I would turn back and look at them, and they would be staring at me, and I'm like, now, does it feel uncomfortable? What are you staring at me for? You're the one that probably has there are more people walking around New York City that have problems than most people with disabilities sometimes. Yeah. And they could be mental problems. So it's not always physical. And I've seen some of the most amazing things from people with abilities that have challenges. And I think just people, need to be more compassionate about understanding that people need help, and a lot of people don't ask for it, and families are destroyed by disabilities because of the finances and so on. So I think that, part of the stigma of it all is helping people, but that people really don't have a disability. They have abilities, just different ways.
It's interesting. Molly and I sort of talk about a theme. I'll call it letting the current take you, as opposed to trying to plan everything. But the way I wrote this down for a previous interview, but I think it sort of hits on the fact that we all deal with this. But when we look at where we are now relative to the plans we had, they're totally different, right? We all make plans. There's a saying, when man plans, God laughs, right? So life takes turns, and yet when we look forward, all of us, when we look forward, we make plans, even though what got us here is totally different than the plans we had. And so, when we're having this conversation, clearly in December of 1988, your plans were completely different than where life took you. But here we are in 2022, and I'm going to ask you, what are your plans going forward? What's left undone?
Oh, so much. I mean, I think actually even more now than ever, because now with COVID-19, I think that there's going to be kind of like a clean slate. And I think it's more important now. I've done a lot of calls lately. Zoom is the word. Internationally with people with disabilities from around the world, and we find that now this might be that point where people are going to be looking at our communities a little bit differently and be more inclusive as we start. I keep using the word, but it's always been the buzzword is, okay, let's be inclusive. But you know what? Now let's actually do it and rebuild our infrastructure. There's something called universal design. When you go up and you build up, these buildings that are going up all over Fort Lauderdale, they can build these buildings with a universal design where every apartment is actually made for an individual with a disability, and you would never even know it. Everybody thinks, oh, I need to have the step going up into the bathtub, into the shower. Yeah. You actually don't. So then you're opening it up for everybody in a wheelchair to be able to roll into the shower. So these are things where, I look at it as, new building that is going to be done, hospital systems, how we're going to do telemedicine, how we're going to be able to take care of people. So I think it's more important now as me, from my community standpoint, is to be vocal from the standpoint of making sure that as they rebuild, that we're waving that flag over here and be like, don't leave us behind.
I love that, Alan. That's so important. And I feel that that's such a call on so many levels to leave no person left behind. And it was interesting when I became a mother I really became very grateful for all the adaptations that are made for through the Disabilities Act, that bathrooms have to be wider, doors have to be wider. When you're coming in with the stroller, as long as there was no one who needed the handicapped bathroom, I would go and use it with my big stroller and have my kid sitting there. It's a little hard to go to the bathroom while you're holding your kid, so. Which is what you have to do if you don't have a large enough bathroom, or just the door space, or having enough space to turn in a store or on the street. Yes, exactly. And now my mother, she's having to have her hips replaced. And what's interesting is I'm noticing it again, that the elderly population obviously benefits from these too. So if we say, okay, there's this very large percent of Americans that have this, and then we keep expanding that out to mothers, to the elderly, and we keep going out, there's no one that's not benefited by having these very humane ways in which we construct
the reason
community.
I brought up universal design is kind of like what you just said is, somebody buys an apartment and, as they're aging, their life changes. You asked me, that's how you started the question. But how's your life changing? Well, I look at it as opportunity for the Reeve Foundation and all these other organizations with disabilities to really come to the table. And I see us uniting on the backside. Some of the stuff going on in Israel, with the group Access Israel that I work with, and Friends of Access Israel here in the States, on being role models and showing others worldwide how to do it. Because a lot of people take a lead from Israel on how to do stuff because they're coming up with such amazing technology for people with disabilities. So, I've seen it, and it's mind-boggling what they're doing over there.
There are so many benefits to lifelong learning. And that's why we love the Great Courses Plus. Expand your curious mind, build upon your skills, improve your memory and self-confidence. The list goes on. Created for the lifelong learner in all of us, this streaming service provides access to thousands of fascinating fact-based lectures across almost any topic imaginable. Taught by world-leading professors and experts, explore topics like self-defense strategies, the stock market, even learn to watercolor paint or cook. And with the Great Courses Plus app, it's easy to watch or listen anytime, anywhere. It's great for any age, high school or college students and families. We recommend checking out the course, America's Long Struggle Against Slavery. This is such an important topic during these really challenging times. We could all benefit from educating ourselves about the realities of slavery in this country. See why thousands of other learners are subscribed to the Great Courses Plus. They're offering our listeners an entire month of unlimited access for free. Sign up today using our special URL to take advantage of this limited time deal. Don't wait. Go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/Molly. Again, it's all spelled out. It's thegreatcoursesplus.com/Molly.
What is the saying? Kindness is easier on a full stomach. So when you're satisfied with yourself, you can reach out with kindness. And I think this time, this coronavirus, we're starting to realize we have to understand ourselves. We have to have this self-awareness and love ourselves. And when we love ourselves, then we can reach out and love other people. And I think a lot of that is happening now. And my fear is when we come out of this, people will go back to their old ways. Because a lot of what's happening now is really positive. Like you say, reaching out to people and making a call to somebody or checking the bottom of the text list. And because what's happening, we're feeling lonely. We're feeling paralyzed, being in quarantine. And what happens when you have that feeling about yourself, the first thing you'll do is emanate and feel empathy about other people who are feeling the same way about that, right? And so I love that saying that kindness is easier on a full stomach. And that full stomach is being kind to yourself and having that awareness that life isn't that bad. Or I love a lot of things about myself, and that opens up, how I can feel about other people, how I can reach out to other people, and how I can feel for other people. And I think, that's, when you've got challenges is when you open up with empathy, right? And so, for me, it makes so much sense that Alan has channeled all of what you do, Alan, into helping others. It makes sense to me. It's hugely admirable, because I think I would have been the person that says, I'm going to shut down. I'm going to close around. And what did you do? You said, I got to lose weight. I got to get healthy, because I have to feel healthy and I have to feel good about myself. So quick question on that, which just came up in my head as I'm rambling here, but what do you do to keep mentally fit? How do you center yourself?
I just spend a lot of time talking to friends. I really take a lot of time talking to my friends, and then my alone time with myself is priceless. I mean, I think a lot, and when the outcome seems to always be the same, which is the craziest thing. The outcome for me is always, it's what you come back to. It's my mantra, is when I'm sitting there thinking and trying to make myself better and stronger, me better and stronger is making others better and stronger. So in my quiet time, I'm actually just thinking about, all right, I'm relaxing right now. I'm not going to answer the phones for a little bit. I'm going to shut myself down. I can't, right now I can't get in the pool and swim because the pool's closed, but that would be some of my good mental time for me to go out and, do some of that kind of stuff. But I think that I take my time now, especially during this virus, and my quiet time is to think about the others and to figure out who is going to be on my list for the next 24 hours, as to who do I make sure that who did I forget yesterday that I don't want to forget tomorrow?
Yes. Alan, let's talk just for a moment about the notion of comparative suffering, because this is something that comes up a lot. And I think in all different communities, we find it where we might be suffering, but then we say, well, I don't deserve to suffer because this other person has it so much worse. And in some way that negates our suffering, when really suffering can be used as a portal into connection. If I can be with my pain, I can also be with your pain. Could you speak about that?
Yeah, I think everybody has to come to, whether it's a physical or mental, challenge. You have to figure out how to cope with it, but you shouldn't feel, like you said, that negative. I said it earlier, I think, is I don't feel bad for myself. I feel, and I hear that people say to me, oh, I shouldn't have called you about that. Why should I call you? Well, I had a couple of friends that have called me during this time, and you could hear it in their voice that they're really down. And I'm like, why? What's wrong? Well, because I was used to doing this, and I was used to doing that, and and so on and so forth. And then you talk to them the next time later, after you give them a little bit of reality dose, and they kind of be like, oh, you know what? I'm okay now. I'm not as bad as I was, because I really, and you know what it was? I've been using that paralyzed thing a lot. Like, I've been reading that to people, and I said, that's what you're feeling. So be lucky that when you start going again, the people that are really suffering are still going to be not moving, and we're going to be moving slower. So everybody deals with pain and the mental parts of being stuck at home and feeling what we're feeling right now in different ways. But take that negative energy and try to spin it around in any way that you can. And if you feel that you're spiraling, reach out to somebody. I mean, we're hearing it more now in the media than ever. Is there are people out there for you. There is trauma. Trauma happens, to people, after an accident or when things aren't right mentally. And we're not right mentally. All of us aren't right mentally right now. Yeah. I have another friend of mine, Andy Lassner, who is, he's the executive producer for the Ellen DeGeneres Show. And he just did a video where his brother interviewed him for Friends of Access Israel. about his issues, and he was a drug addict. And this guy now has 20 Emmys, and has worked for Ellen DeGeneres for years. And he had this problem, long time ago. And he was talking about how he thanks, every day he says, thank God I'm here to do these things. So be lucky that you're here and that you're present and that you have your health and that you have your happiness and your family and your friends. And that all comes back to a lot of what we were talking about was, I think you mentioned in the first technology, right at the beginning, the circle. And it seems to be in this conversation, the pieces of the puzzle all are in the circle of life.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast that Brene Brown did about the pandemic, and she talks about how people, are feeling anxiety, and then they feel guilt that they have anxiety because they have it so much better than others. But the reality is, if you're ashamed that you're feeling a negative feeling, you'll never solve that feeling. You've got to embrace it, and it's okay that you have anxiety about your situation. Even if there are other people that have it worse than you, you'll never solve your situation, right? You've got to, this goes back to loving yourself and being full. You have to accept that I have anxiety about this, that I'm not coping well with it, not comparative to anybody else, but compared to you, right?
And communication can heal that right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I go back to the old text messages and things along those lines where, when you're like saying, oh my God, this is so horrible. I hear people, I'm cooking 3 meals a day and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, which I've never done before. It's not that bad. Life is not that bad right now. So, it's bad now. It could be worse. And we have to be smart as we move forward.
If you had a cave painting message to a future society, what would it be?
What would Alan Brown's cave painting be?
Be caring, be thoughtful, be inclusive, be to others what you want them to be to you. And I think that's really important is if we show the best of ourselves, then hopefully other people will show the best of themselves, and we'll have a better world, which is, I think, what will hopefully come out of this whole thing.
How can we support the Alan T. Brown Fund of the Christopher Reeves Foundation?
So right now, on May 27th at 8 p.m., we're having our first virtual Poker for Paralysis tournament. So it's a $100 buy-in, and that's sponsored by the World Poker Tour. And then on June 18th, we're going to have Bruce Beck, Adam Schefter, Sam Rosen, and Ian Eagle do a Father's Day sports talk. So you could buy your Father's Day a gift to go into a Zoom room and get a little sports fix for a little while. And just go to the foundation and look at what we do, and they can go on and make a donation. And, every penny that we raise, especially now, we are so on top of this COVID thing with our community. I brought it up early with the caregivers and making sure that we're taking care of others. And, the mantra of the Reeve Foundation is a little piece of Dana and a little piece of Christopher, which is today's care and tomorrow's cure. And that's kind of what we are at the foundation, is taking care of people physically, mentally now, while we figure out treatments for the future. And I've seen it. I've seen my friends that have been implanted with stimulators, and I've seen the science, and it's just dollars that are keeping us away from changing our lives. I might not ever walk completely normally again, but I'll definitely have a better quality of life because of the technology and what's going on in this world right now.
Well, I tell you, it was so timely to be able to talk to you in the middle of all this. I really love your perspective on how we deal with life and how we deal with challenges. And I think most important of all is that there's always more to be done. And always more to be done. We're going to finish this up with just a little speed round, just a couple of questions, just one-word answers, okay?
Go for it.
What are you reading these days?
I haven't been really reading. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts.
That's fine.
To be honest with you. I haven't really been reading a lot of books lately. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts that don't have to do with coronavirus.
All right.
It's hard so just so you know, it's actually hard for me to hold a book. because I can't turn the pages.
True. Well, I would say listening to a book is the same as reading a book. So
Shoe Dogs is the last book that I listened to.
What is it called?
Shoe Dog.
What's it about?
It's the story of Phil Knight and Nike. It's amazing.
Great.
That's an amazing story.
Tell me something cool that you bought that cost less than $100.
Does it have to be legal?
No, it doesn't.
No, geez. Something cool that I bought for less than $100. Oh, that's easy. My Instant Pot, my pressure cooker.
Cool.
The best, healthiest way to cook.
All right. How about your favorite sound?
Just the here in the water outside on my terrace.
Cool. And the last one, what are you grateful for?
This, friends, family, community, life, helping others.
That's great.
How do you define freedom?
That's not a speed round question for sure. That's a good question.
Define freedom. I feel now freedom, or you're talking about like pre-corona?
Just in general, however you would define what freedom is.
Pre-corona, freedom for me was being able to get places, not having to worry about where I was going and thinking it through so much on the other side. I travel a lot around the world and the country, and it's not easy. And I feel that if there was, for me, living as a quadriplegic, the freedom that I would want was the ease to travel where every bed in the hotels are the same height, where the guys that are getting me on and off the plane, it's not like, it's so ugly, me getting on and off an airplane, like how they carry me on and off the plane. I'm the first one on, the last one off. I mean, it's degrading. So I think the freedom that I'm looking for, I don't need to be freed from the chair, because the chair is not what's holding me back. It's the other things that you want to do while you're living in the chair that should be easier. And if I could have that would be the freedom that I'm looking for, is just for things to be a little bit smoother.
Very powerful answer.
Yeah.
You are such an inspiration, Alan. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. This was great.
Alan, before we close, one of the things that always blows me away is your wheelchair. This thing.
Pimp my ride.
What's that? Pimp my ride.
Pimp my ride.
Yeah, this thing climbs stairs. It's amazing. It's a piece of technology that I think you've talked about it like it's akin to the Segway, but literally it goes vertical and climbs stairs, and then it's fantastic.
It's outrageous.
And I haven't seen many of them around. But tell me about that.
What I'm sitting in right now, and I don't know if you've seen. You haven't seen me in my new chair. So I think because I saw you haven't seen me in this. I'm sitting in the newest one. This is model number 3 off the line. So the Segway came from this. Dean came in, lives up in New Hampshire. He saw a girl trying to climb up a curb one day, and he went to help her to get up the curb. And he said, "I have to figure out how to make this life easier." So he figured, all right, I got to get somebody that could get up the stair. And he was in the shower, and he went and he slipped, and he realized, oh my God, center of gravity, gyroscopes. So we started to build this chair and made this chair. The FDA gave him such a hard time to put it out, and we're talking 18 years ago. But this chair is the grandfather of the Segway, and it balances on 2 wheels, it climbs stairs, and it goes on the beach. So it's the game changer, because when I go out in public and I'm out in big crowds and doing my work and, being pushy, I'm at face level with people.
Yeah.
And that's huge. So, it used to drive me crazy when people would always, I was living my life like this, looking up all day long at everybody else. Well, I don't want to be looked down upon. I want to be looked at even. And Dean came in, has given me that opportunity, and not just me, others. And these chairs are coming back out again. Mobius Mobility is the name of the company. And Dean is an incredible man that he has more medical patents than anybody in the United States of America. And all of his products help people. And that's what it's all about. And we met through Johnson & Johnson when they were a client of mine for some work that I was doing. And I became his crash test dummy, and he's kept me all the way through. This thing went away because the FDA didn't approve it, and I went down to D.C. and testified in front of a congressional panel to get this thing recoded. And I call them all the time, and I've said, you can't let this go away. You can't let this go away, because when you've lived like this for so long, and you know that you brought the word of freedom before.
Yeah.
You asked me, what's freedom? Freedom is actually what I'm sitting in. He gives me more freedom than all of my friends that are living in chairs regularly. And all my friends are jealous. And that's all, and they shouldn't be. They should be able to get them, and they will be able to get them now.
It's such a beautiful point. So much of freedom is giving people the chance to have choice and to be treated with dignity and with equality. That's a really beautiful point. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Alan, you're a rock star in my book.
Awesome.
I love you, man.
Love this.
I love you, man. And I can't wait for us to have our lunches again.
Yeah,
Thank
totally.
you.
We'll have to have a couple bottles of tequila for this one.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
All right.
thank you so much for sharing your story.
Some stuff. Catch you guys later.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank
Bye.
you. Our podcast, Conversations Matter, is produced by Amalia Briggs. Our sound engineer is Matthew Tucker, and our amazing sponsor is the Great Courses Plus. Thank you. We couldn't do it without you.